Psychologically, who makes the better role model? Those who are talented or those who work hard? I'm Marco Perry. Welcome to the Perry Platform. When it comes to inspiring people, what's more attractive? Being a genius or a hard worker? Of course, you can have a genius who's a hard worker, but for the sake of argument, let's say you can only have one or the other. Which would it be? This question revolves around the age-old argument of talent versus effort. When your peers look at you, what's going to make them want to better themselves? The question that I'm posing today is relevant to those outside of your own perspective. Of course, if we talk about you personally, you would likely choose to be a genius. That's what you'd want, because the effort that is required of you is reduced to produce output comparable to somebody else. That comes with being a genius. It means you are smarter. It means you can do things a lot better and more efficiently than your peers. Things just aren't as taxing to you. But when it comes to those people around you and their perception of the world, what's more powerful to them? Is it having a peer or a role model who is a genius, aka super talented inherently, or someone who works harder? Penn State University put out an article exploring this today with a particular focus on aspiring scientists. They found that overall, scientists who are known for their hard work are more motivating than scientists who are viewed as naturally brilliant, like somebody maybe like Einstein. Now, you can apply this model to more relatable examples. How about Stevie Wonder? The man is blind, but he's an expert musician who has reached the highest levels. Of course, you're going to need an extra amount of effort to do that, given that handicap. How about Michael Jordan? He was cut from his high school basketball team. Then he worked hard and made it to the top of the basketball world. How about Rocky Balboa? He wasn't anything special. He trained really hard. He got beaten a few times, then he came back and became one of the best boxers in that movie universe. There are so many examples of this. Those people are the ones who we use as role models because we look at them and we recognize that they didn't have the easiest path laid out for them. They had to work and put in effort to get to where they are. That resonates with us because we know that we can do the same. Maybe not reach the same results as them, but the factor of effort, that's attainable to us all. Talent, on the other hand, that is reserved for some people. And here's the counter example. So you have Einstein and maybe someone like Jimmy Neutron. These people are just geniuses. It comes to them naturally. Of course, Einstein still probably put in a lot of work. I'm not trying to diminish that, but it's a whole different category with them. The work that they put in has exceptional returns compared to the average person. Them at 50% is probably equivalent to a regular Joe at 100. We may like these characters because of what they represent, something along the lines of human awesomeness or reaching levels that we thought weren't possible before, but we typically wouldn't look at them as role model material. Instead, we're drawn to something else. It's the tale of the underdog, which has been portrayed numerous times throughout history. It's actually an ancient narrative, and I'd even call this a universal truth. The fact that you can overcome the odds and transform yourself into a hero. That's a fundamental human story that we've been telling ourselves for thousands of years. It's not easy, of course. It may even be improbable, but you don't have to be molded in the light of perfection to pursue your goals with vigor. Now, I should also point out that I said you can overcome these things and become a hero. I didn't say you will. Because the reality is people sometimes will fail in their journey, but it's the intrigue of potential. You know that something is there, and it's within grasp, even if you have to work hard for it. Doesn't mean you'll get it per se, but it's there. It's possible. That very fact should be motivating you to go after these things. It's not impossible. It's not beyond the realm of what can happen to you. Effort can get you there, but something like a genius level of performance, that might not be as accessible. You have to have those genius traits prior to even reaching that level. Now, the article goes on to say that there's a myth floating around about you needing to be a genius to succeed in science. Struggling is a normal part of that journey, and discouraging yourself with comparison to the elite is a detriment to the field as a whole. Not just to yourself, because people are not entering the field at the numbers that these scientists need. People are looking at the Einsteins of the world and saying, I don't stack up, I can't contribute. And that's incorrect. People who have the potential to lead successful careers in this field are throwing in the towel far too early because they encounter roadblocks and they're having an issue overcoming it. So, to tackle this leakage of talent, the researchers were looking towards role modeling. That's the tool that they wanted to use to make sure people didn't give up as early and to make sure that they pursued their goals, their career aspirations in this realm of science. And you have to ask yourself, who is the ideal type of person to put before these students as that role model? Who can they mimic and draw inspiration from? What's the best type of person to have in that role? One of the findings that I found interesting was this. The attributions that people make of others' success are important because those views could significantly impact whether they believe that they too can succeed. In other words, when we analyze the source of success for other people, we draw conclusions about our own prospects for success. If you see somebody and you believe that the reason that they are successful is due to a biological gift, maybe they have this innate capacity for science in this matter, where they are so far and above everyone else in terms of raw potential that they've been able to leverage that to get to where they are. You might look at that and say, hey, that's not me. I don't have that same capacity. I'm not on that level. And because of that, you're going to compare yourself with that person and be like, the odds are stacked against me. Should I even try? I will never reach that level. But in the reverse, if you see somebody who appears to be just a regular person, someone you can relate to, but they've climbed the hierarchy due to things like working hard and things within their control, like building a relationship, networking, making sure that every time they do a project, they're doing it to the best of their ability. That to you will be very inspiring. You will see that and recognize that the main reason why they've succeeded is because they are trying really hard, because they are struggling with whatever it is they're going through, but they're persevering. You will see that and think, hey, I could do that. I have that same capability as a human. This is different than being a genius. There are two separate paths here. The genius lane is reserved for some people. You need some predetermined traits to fall into that category, but the effort lane, that's for everyone. Of course, there are varying degrees there. Some people are better at putting effort in compared to others. There's going to be variance. That's how things are. But the key is you can relate to that method of success. You can understand that route that the person took and apply it to your own life, maybe even outside of the realm of science. Let's step outside for a second. Let's say you're training to be an Olympic fighter. If you see somebody who's straight out the womb, just has a killer instinct, they're basically Rambo on the field, and they're not even trying hard, but they're still taking everyone down, that's going to be demoralizing to you. But if you see somebody who is doing 1,000 push-ups every day, who is training very hard for months at a time, you will see that and think, hey, I could do that. It's not something beyond my grasp there. I could work at a level similar to that, and I would see results. Now, of course, you wouldn't particularly be at the same level. There are other factors there, but you could reach a personal best that's comparable to that individual. That is a very, very powerful thing to know. There is something about working hard and overcoming obstacles and persisting that resonates deeply with the human soul. At the same time, this also reveals our comparative nature in a way. We are highly influenced by our surroundings, and they can induce effects within you that you may not even notice. This calls to mind my income inequality argument. Let's say you have three people. Someone who earns $20,000, someone who earns $1 million, and Jeff Bezos, who is a multi-billionaire. To go from the person who earns $20,000 a year, basically someone in poverty, to the person earning $1 million, there is 50 degrees of inequality to that equation, a 50 times multiple. Now, to go from the millionaire to Bezos, there are thousands of degrees of inequality, thousands of times of multiples between the two. If you are solely focused on income equality, you're going to care more about the millionaire and Bezos because the inequality is far greater there. You won't care about the person who's in poverty because it's only to a degree of 50. Now, of course, we don't operate like that in the real world, but the message is still the same here. Fundamentally, we are focused on comparing ourselves to each other through this metric, and we're not taking into account something else, our own standard. Who cares if there is a lot of inequality between the millionaire and Bezos? Presumably, they are still doing well. But because we're fundamentally honed in on the comparative element, that's all we're seeing. I don't think that's the best way to go about life. In this example, our goal should be getting rid of poverty, making sure everyone has a decent, livable floor, making sure that the inequality doesn't go out of control, but at the same time, we focus on the individual. It's not really that we have an income inequality issue, we have a poverty problem. They may be related, but they're not the same thing. The lens by which we view the world obviously impacts our perception. Keep this in mind too, because it's going to come back up again in a second. So now, back to this idea of effort and trying hard. I would likely get some slack for this, because today that's become a dirty word to say, but I must also lay out some nuance here. I don't agree with the maxim that all you have to do in this world to succeed is to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's some age-old saying. Some people don't even have boots. Some people have boots, but they don't know how to tie them. Not everyone can become Jeff Bezos, and just because you try doesn't mean you can reach those heights particularly, and effort doesn't bridge the gap in every equation. There are lots of factors here at play. Governments have to help balance the scales by ensuring a minimum standard for those who can't climb societal heights, and that's fundamentally not the comparison that I'm illustrating though. It's the wrong idea. This isn't a you versus a millionaire idea of success. It's more focused on future you versus past you. That's the idea of success that I'm honing in on. You may not become Einstein. Maybe you will. Who knows? But it's not about that. It's not about you comparing yourself to one of the extremes here. It's about pushing your personal limits outwards and comparing yourself to who you once were. That's the only fair comparison to give yourself. That's progression on the same scale, and it's worth paying attention to. In that vacuum, effort is a large part of the equation. It can't be ignored in the same ways we do when we compare ourselves to other people. To go from your point A to your point B, you have to try. You have to put in the work. Being discouraged holds you back from even reaching the starting point of your mission. It's counterintuitive. Effort and sustained progress will bring you to places you didn't even know were possible. You just have to believe, even if that sounds cliche. The proof of this is psychological. Your psyche is drawn to effort, not talent. You aspire to be people who demonstrate a high degree of trying. People who aren't just naturally gifted, people who go through the ringer. That's because we all have the innate ability to exert effort. Of course, to varying degrees, but we can all still do it. Not everyone has the innate gift of talent. You may have it in one realm or another, but it's guaranteed not to exist in everything that you do. This also touches on the idea of fairness in our perceptions of the world. If you see someone who has worked extremely hard to get to where they get, we actually admire that. We want to be that person. We think it's fair, in other words. But if we see somebody who got to the top without trying that hard, because maybe they're talented, or maybe just because they know somebody, they have a relationship with the boss, maybe they're family members with somebody who put them in a place, maybe because their parents were rich, we don't respect that. We don't think that's fair. We don't aspire to be like that. That's not a role model to us. Fairness ties into the equation, and I think you should be fair to yourself as well. You don't have the same starting point as anybody else. We're all different, but one person you can compare yourself to who did have the same starting point is you, past you, compared to future you. You can do that, and it's fair. Effort is a symbol of that promise, a guarantee that by sacrificing something today, you will reap the benefits in the future. You will advance yourself. It's an assured reality. You will go from point A to point B, but maybe that distance isn't that large, but you will still move up in the world. Maybe not as much as your peers, but who cares? Progress for you is still progress. To get from one point to another, you have to exude effort. You have to try. And if you do, it's a guarantee you're going to get better. There is some type of happiness to be found in that simple realization, and for you to get to the point where that becomes a reality, you have to do a few things. And first of all, it starts with you not comparing yourself constantly to your peers. I know. It seems to be a fundamental human characteristic to always be assessing your surroundings and comparing yourself against the social hierarchy. There may even be evolutionary benefits to that, making sure you're stacking up well with the tribe, but now you have the luxury to step outside of that. You can simply focus on you. on making yourself the best version of you that you can. I suggest you capitalize on that. And the second thing you should do once you reach that level is to set a goal for yourself and actually try. Be the role model that you need for yourself. Who cares about talent? It's about effort. Find people like that. People who are trying really hard at something, and it's going to inspire you to do the same. Even if you don't reach your goal, you're going to move closer to it each and every day if you try. That path of success is something that you should be proud of, something that's worth putting effort into. That may actually be the fundamental narrative of life. You going from point A to point B to point C to point D, it's a progression. That's what it's all about. Of course, you should still try and pick the most noble milestones for yourself, and you should definitely be striving to reach them each and every day. But picking those is something that you have to find out for yourself. What do you want to do? And then once you know, you move towards it inch by inch. Now, in this study, scientists were given numerous different stories. There were ones of failure and persistence. Those were found to be the ones that resonated most with these students. Those were the ones that got them up and got them feeling like they can succeed. Not the ones of Einstein solving everything miraculously. If Edison failed 1,000 times prior to inventing the light bulb, what makes you think that you'll succeed given your first, second, or third attempt doing whatever it is that you're doing? Understanding that famous scientists also failed, but they kept trying and in the end they won, that's going to make the student who has failed time and time again feel better about themselves, because it's true. You don't have to succeed on your first try. It's about progression. It's about trying your best and bettering yourself. And along the way, you may find your own version of creating your light bulb. That's a powerful message to be giving to these students, for them to realize that I'm not just out of the ordinary. People like me have came before and they have failed. I don't have to be an Einstein to succeed in this area. I don't have to be perfect. I don't even have to be a genius. All I have to do is persevere. I have to overcome the obstacles in my way, and I have a shot at becoming a legend. Talent is not a prerequisite to that. Of course, you need some degree of it, but effort makes up a lot of that equation as well. You can find a path for yourself even if you haven't been blessed by the gods above with a set of predetermined characteristics that make it easy for you. If it was easy for you, it probably wouldn't be as fun anyway. So, how you define success, that really matters here. Once you shift your gaze to focus on yourself and your personal journey, you'll see things in a different light. Burdens will be lifted off your shoulders and you can zero in on your own progress. Effort will get you there. It will move you along the path and help you find out what success is for yourself. But once you compare yourself to other people, that's when you lose sight of the vision. You just want to be Jeff Bezos when that's impossible. You'll never be him because you're not Jeff Bezos, you're you. Try to create a vision of your own self in the future that you want to become. An easy experiment here is to think of future you 10 years down the road. And that's somebody who has done everything right. Somebody who has exuded virtue and done the things that you want to do. Then think about somebody, same you, but it's you 10 years down the road who has failed, who has done nothing, who has never tried anything. What are they going to look like? What are the differences between the two? Then you carefully plot your course out so you can reach that higher self, the vision of you that you would like to be. And even if you don't reach it fully, you're moving closer towards it and further away from the opposite. That is success in and of itself. That's you going to a better place for you. There's really nothing holding you back, so you should just get started with it. Get going. So, that now brings me to the end of our conversation for today. If you enjoyed the content, be sure to leave a review and share. That'll help us grow. And you can also find me on Twitter and Instagram @PerryPlatform. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you soon.